I need a new place to put my dog's water bowl. So, if you recall last year, I made one from a big, huge piece of wool plaid that I had, and it's worked out really well. Unfortunately, I can't wash it, and when I try to vacuum it off, it just doesn't really look like it's getting clean. I need to have something there to absorb the water, and the width of this is right, you know, from here to here, but it's huge this way. It's like a yard. It's actually over 36 inches long. And this, because of being tricot, it's real slippery. I couldn't put this on the floor anyway. The dogs would be sliding around. I'd have water everywhere. So I was thinking if I folded it in half, that gives me, let's see, width-wise, it gives me 23 inches this direction, and I don't think it's square, so this would be 20 inches, no, 19 inches. I think what I'm going to do is put it right sides together and stitch it, and then try to leave a nice little border around the edge. Here we go. I'm going to turn this right side out. Now, because I created a little gate, and by that I mean when I was stitching these two together, I had to leave an opening, you know, through which to turn this. I should have shown it to you, but I'll just draw an example. Okay, so we're going to pretend like this is the object. The dashed lines are my sewing lines right here. And I come to where I'm going to leave the opening, so on this particular side. And the way I do that is, now over here is my seam allowance. So I stitch, stitch, stitch. And then I'm going to leave this spot right here open. So I will stitch two little, sometimes three, depending on the seam allowance, but this is all fabric, all the way around. And then when I turn this right side out, these, I call them gates. I don't know why, but they roll to the inside and force this right here to roll into the inside. So even if it's something that's bulky like this, it forces the fabric, where did it go, right here, to just fold in, just naturally without me having to force it. It just rolls right on in there. I'll see if I can, there it is, right there. George had some issues and I had to kind of fix that situation, but here, I'll turn it, oh, there we go. So that's stitch line, and that's where I'm making that little gate, and it just rolls right in. Okay, so I can either stitch this by hand or I can do it on the sewing machine. And here is the situation, unanticipated issue, it's because it's that slimy tricot. That's the only word I've got for it. It's sliding on itself. So if I don't stitch it, you know, somehow stitch, it's going to shift with the water bowl on it, or the dogs will step and it'll slide. So I'm going to have to like quilt this. I think I'll just do, I don't even have to worry about how it looks. But this would not work well for water and the dogs. It would freak the dogs out if they stepped on it and their feet slid. I don't think that would be a good idea. So let me get it stitched up and we'll see what happens after that. All I have to do now is finish this by hand. It's not going to fit under the presser foot on my sewing machine. So let's see, I need a sewing needle. Basically, I just did a spirally kind of stitch to hold that so that the tricot wouldn't allow it to slip inside like it was earlier. And that kind of makes it usable on both sides, as long as I can keep it from sliding on the floor. If it slips on the floor, then I will have to put some hot glue on the bottom, whichever side I decide is the bottom, and that will be the new water bowl mat. There is always an idea in the back of my head, and so today I decided I have this leftover fabric. Today is just going to be one of those, a little of this, a little of that kind of days. I have this leftover fabric from the table topper that I've been trying to come up with an idea for, and I was just thinking about it. It's cut sort of weirdly due to the fact that I needed a square, so I have this odd, like an L, a giant L cut out. I am thinking about making either 2 Christmas pot holders or like a table trivet where you can put something warm on it and a pot holder. Just kind of in that frame of mind. So this is that, I don't think I've ever shown it to you, but you make a mat that goes under your tablecloth. This fuzzy side is like the part that goes down, face down on the table, and then this kind of plasticky side is what's on top, and then your tablecloth sits on top of that, and it protects your table from warm items. I don't think it would work for anything super hot. However, I was just thinking that I could double it up. And I don't want the plasticky side to melt. So if I took this and put it on the inside, the direct heat, well, sort of indirect direct heat would be on the fuzzy side. That's kind of an idea I might try. So there's one side, and here is the other side. I did not fussy cut, obviously. These are just scraps of fabric. Let's just see. I feel like I do need 2 layers of this. And I want them so that the plastic is on the inside. Ooh, that's nice and cushy. Okay, that's perfect. I don't want to use my fabric scissors to cut this. These are my paper scissors. And I'm going to cut this just slightly smaller so I don't have to worry about it being on the seam. It's quite puffy, but I do feel like it'll serve a great purpose. cut out my binding that will go all the way around. I'm going to do square edge. As you know, I don't care for miter. And the way I will do it is, as most of the time, if you've not watched one of my videos before, I have a couple out there at least where I demonstrate how to effectively get a nice square edge. This little project I did last night has what would be known as, this is a 9 patch, and then you have your squared edges. So these two were done, these two long edges were done after these little short edges. So you apply the short edges first, you fold them out, you press, and then you turn this and you add the long edges after you've done that. So these two short edges, I don't know if it's showing up on the camera, but there's one and there's the other. So you apply this and then turn it and apply the long edge and the long edge so that you have that look. It's similar to this. So because I'm using a fabric where I will be turning it over and stitching it down to the other side, so it'll be stitched on one side and then flipped over and stitched on the other side, I have to do one side first. So this will be side A, and then this is side B right here. A, B, C, D. Very much like this. Once A and B are done, you push them out and you press. The difference is A and B have to be at least an inch outside of your project. So you will cut your binding strip 2 inches longer than each of the sides. All right, so I took the bread out of the oven. I made the cake for tonight and took the cake out of the oven. I did something else and now I'm back. So I cut this into the binding for that. Okay, so here's the best part of all. This time when I went to the ironing board, I only pressed from this side because I wanted to see what this side felt like when I got done. This side is hot. It is still hot. It's not warm, it's hot. I was using high cotton heat setting on my iron. This side is as cool as a cucumber. And it didn't even get warm, like not even a little bit warm. So the purpose for which this has been created has been fulfilled. I'm very happy. All right, so now that I've done the pressing part, we flip this around to the outside. As you can see, we've got that square right there. This has to be trimmed off. But we want to be very careful because this is a folded edge. And if we used a roll, like if I decided to use my rotary cutter and I'm cutting along, I could skiff over and hit that, cut it, and then I'd have to remove this to replace it. That's why I don't use that when I am doing my binding. I use my scissors, especially for this step right here. So I'm going to be as careful as I can, and I'm just going to cut right here. But wait, no, Laurie, there will be a raw edge right there. Yes, there will be a raw edge right there. We will deal with that raw edge when we get our binding turned around to the other side. And that is the third reason why you have to do this in A, B, C, D form. Go back to A and B. And I happen to know that that is A and that is B. If you need to mark them, by all means, go ahead. Get your clips or your pens. Now we're going to fold A right here, and we're not going to worry about this. We're just going to let that corner hang out right there. And we're going to wrap this around and put a clip there, like so. And evenly put another clip midway. You might need 2 or 3 depending on how large your project is. Okay. And make sure that what you're doing to the binding on this end, you're doing to the binding on this end. And make sure that what you're doing to the seam allowance over here is the same thing that you're doing to the seam allowance over here. In other words, I don't want this to be way down here like this and this to only be there. That's very not attractive. So kind of make sure that everything is even and equal. And you might have to adjust, you know, like this one seems to be, I think it's because of this blob right here. So I'm going to take my duckbill scissors and carefully trim that out, or just loosen it up. Sometimes when fabric can relax, it just behaves so much better. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I'll pin that, and then I'm going to flip the whole thing whoop, around and do the same thing to B that I did to A. If you prefer to use numbers, you can say, you know, side number 1, side number 2, however, whatever works the best. If you know that this is A and this is B, or 1 and 2, then you're totally going to be able to do C and D. All right, now here we are going to turn that raw edge that we cut, we're going to turn it in right here, like so, and then fold this down right on the top of itself. And this is where being able to stitch by hand comes in handy, because you can manipulate that to look very neat and tidy with your needle. When you come to this, just push it up under there and stitch it down, and it'll just look perfect. I think you can kind of see what our project will look like. And I can promise you the backed up layers that we glued together of the mat that goes on your table underneath your tablecloth, those 2 layers, and then a layer of Insul-bright right here and another layer of Insul-bright right here that wasn't even a solid piece. I just pieced it in there. Totally kept the heat from my iron going from here all the way to here. I couldn't believe how really well insulated that truly was. So the only thing I can tell you is I think I bought that mat on Amazon. I will try to find it in my purchase history and link it down below this video. You know how wood ends up getting when it's been too hot or something. So long story short, I will try to find that pad in my order history and link it below this video for you, along with any of the other items that I happen to remember that I need to link. Insul-bright is very easily found. I believe they have it on Amazon, but I think I bought mine at Joann. I'm not sure. In any case, it's a product, and I'll try to find something for you so that you can go look. Oh, sorry, so that you can go look for it. You use it in pot holders and lunch bags and things like this. So it's a perfect, it actually works well for keeping things cool or keeping things from damaging heat. Anyway, so let's see, we made a little mat that I made from a old tricot lined pillow sham. I made it into a mat for the dogs, for their water bowl, and it has been just fine. They've had water several times today. Nobody has slipped. There's not big slops of water all over the floor around the water bowl. I mean, there are dribbles, but you know, I can't control, because that would just be the entire house. I can't make it big enough to stop that from happening. But the main point of access is well protected. It's 2 layers with that hideous tricot on the inside, and it's quilted and it's soft and it's absorbent, and my floors are very happy. So that makes me happy, which reminds me, I have to order a new mop head. My mop head fell apart today, so that's what I am gonna go do. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you liked this video as we get closer and closer and closer to the end of 2020. If you liked this video, please hit the thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.